We've all heard it. When you're peeking angles, make sure to slice the pie. It's advice that gets thrown around a lot, but to be honest, it couldn't be further from the truth. Relying too heavily on this technique can actually get you killed more often than not. Picture this, your jet slowly slicing the pie as you peek into B site on ascent. Suddenly, a chamber holding a tight angle one-taps you before you even have a chance to react. Does that sound familiar? The truth is, while slicing the pie has its own place in Valorant, it's often misunderstood and misapplied by many players. In this video, we'll dive into why blindly following this advice can be detrimental to your gameplay and explore when and how to properly utilize this technique for maximum effectiveness. Now, quickly before the video, if you're currently below Radiant and are looking to get a slice of your dream rank, my team of Radiant coaches and I can help you with our 10-week premium coaching program that offers a 500 RR guarantee or your money back. That's right. If you don't see results with our coaching, you don't pay. We have over a dozen Radiant coaches with VCT experience on teams such as Ascend, Immortals, Disguise, Gen G, Exa, and Giants. To find out more and to see if we'd be a good fit, use the link in the description below to book a free strategy call. Hurry, because only 28 spots are remaining for the next 10-week season. Now, let's start with the basics. What exactly is slicing the pie? Slicing the pie comes from the military, and the idea behind it is quite valuable. Both in Valorant and armed conflicts, you don't want to expose yourself to multiple threats simultaneously. If many people target you and you can only focus on one target at a time, you don't need a crystal ball to tell what will happen. You would lose that engagement. And in the case of Valorant, that might just mean you also lose the round. That's why we always try to avoid peeking multiple enemies simultaneously. We want to isolate angles and targets. So what better way is there than to use a technique invented by the military for just that purpose? Well, a lot of ways actually, but we'll get to that. First, let's dive a bit deeper. The actual technique is called slicing the pie because that represents the underlying idea very well. You need to worry about a large number of angles, a whole pie's worth even. Ideally, you would slice that pie into small, palatable pieces. Take Ascent's B site as an example. There are many angles enemies might pop up on. These include Market, the platform just outside Market, close cubby, both sides of CT, stairs, boathouse, and so many other different off angles. If we take our time and slowly peek all of these angles one by one, we'd be perfectly isolating each of those angles and giving ourselves a fair fight despite the uncertainty, at least in theory. And that's where the value of slicing the pie lies. If you're forced to deal with a lot of angles, you can isolate them. And especially if you don't know all the common angles, it helps you to not over peek too many of them. That means especially if you're a new player, slicing the pie is a valuable technique that helps you peek angles one by one without putting yourself in a position where you suddenly have to fight multiple opponents. Another advantage of slicing the pie is that it's quiet. Since you're peeking slowly, there's no reason to make any noise, making it the best way for a surprise contact play. In theory, you can slowly peek every angle one by one without making noise and without exposing yourself to multiple enemies at once. Now, let's examine some scenarios where slicing the pie completely fails and can put you at a major disadvantage. One of the best examples is the hookah entrance on Bind. This area presents all three main issues that make slicing the pie ineffective. First, there's a problem of isolation. As soon as you enter, enemies can be on either side, both to your left and right. Trying to clear all angles one by one is practically impossible without exposing yourself. You'd have to walk back and forth, and if opponents peek you at any time while you're doing this, you're likely looking the wrong way. Second, there's the issue of angle advantage. The narrow entrance to hookah allows enemies to easily set up advantageous angles from various positions. The closer you are to a corner and the further your enemy, the greater their advantage becomes. Finally, the oppressive nature of close angles in hookah makes it a judge paradise. Attempting to walk in slowly while slicing the pie will result in you showing an arm and getting jumped by a scary opponent wielding a dragon judge. Another example is a main on Ascent. Here, it's again really difficult to slice the pie due to the inability to isolate angles. When you peek out of main, you're forced to deal with the heaven and hell angles simultaneously. Even if you perfectly slice the pie, you must gamble on whether people are positioned up or down. Many areas in game present this challenge, making it impossible to isolate all angles sometimes, no matter how perfect your technique may be. Similarly, while the B site itself on Ascent may seem relatively sliceable, getting into B main already poses problems. At first glance, slicing the pie here might appear straightforward as you can peek one angle at a time. However, that's not actually the case. The angle advantage we mentioned earlier gives agents with escape tools like Chamber and Edge when holding an angle such as B main. They are, number one, enemies positioned in that off angle are going to be further from the corner, allowing them to see you, the attacker, before you're able to see them. thumb. In this situation, even though it might seem like a perfect place to use the technique, slicing the pie simply doesn't work well. Swinging carelessly could result in poor crosshair placement and the need for a hard flick. But quote-unquote properly slicing the pie and peeking very slowly also almost guarantees your death, as you'll get killed by someone you can't even see. Ironically, peeking the angle without regard for what's around the corner would be preferable to slicing in this case. So what can we do in these situations where slicing the pie falls short? Fortunately, there are several effective alternatives that can help you safely peek and gather information without fully exposing yourself. One effective alternative to slicing the pie is using utility. Abilities like flashes, smokes, and mollies can create safer peeking opportunities by obscuring enemy vision or forcing them to reposition themselves. For example, throwing a flash before entering hookah can temporarily blind opponents, allowing you to quickly clear angles without relying on the slow slicing technique. Similarly, using informational utility or using a molly or nade to clear those corners can give you the upper hand when peeking. Another technique is jiggle peeking. This involves quickly exposing and concealing your position to bait out enemy reactions and gain information. By quickly peeking in and out of cover, you can gather info on enemy positions without fully committing to an engagement. Jiggle peeking is particularly useful when you suspect an opponent is holding a tight angle, as it can force them to reveal their location by firing a shot and messing up their crosshair placement. Jump spotting is another valuable tool in your arsenal. By jump peeking around corners, you can gain a quick glimpse of enemy positions without risking getting killed. This technique is especially effective when combined with the fast peek, as it allows you to pre-aim at the spot where you expect an enemy to be. Jump spotting can also be used to bait out enemy util, such as forcing a jet to dash or an omen to shadow step, giving you valuable information for your team. It's important to remember that these alternatives should be used dynamically based on the situation. There's no one-size-fits-all approach, and the best players know when to employ each technique. For example, if you suspect a close angle judge player, jiggle peeking or jump spotting might be too risky, and actually using utility to force him out could be a better option. On the other hand, if you're trying to gather information on a long angle, a quick jiggle peek might be all you need to spot an enemy's position. Incorporating these alternatives into your gameplay will make you a more versatile and unpredictable player. By relying less on the predictable slicing the pie technique and adapting your peeking style to each unique situation, you'll be better equipped to take on any angle and come out on top. Remember, the key is to constantly assess your surroundings, communicate with your team, and make split-second decisions based on the information you gather. With practice and experience, you'll develop a keen sense of when to slice, when to jiggle, and when to jump spot, keeping your enemies guessing and giving you the advantage. With all that said, remember, while slicing the pie has its own place in the game, don't fall into the trap of over-reliance. If you want to dive even deeper into the art of peeking, be sure to check out my updated peeking guide for 2024, where I break down even more advanced techniques to help you out in game. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.